"There's room in my heart for you this Christmas," he said to the Apache mother fleeing with her. The wind howled across the snow-covered plains, carrying with it the bitter chill of a winter that seemed unending. The trees, stripped bare of their leaves, shivered as though they felt the same cold that gnawed at the bones of those who dared travel these lands. In the distance, the faint outline of a mountain range was barely visible, cloaked in a thick veil of snow and mist. The world seemed vast, silent, and unforgiving. Through this frozen wilderness a woman trudged forward, her boots sinking into the icy ground with each weary step. Her cloak, patched and worn, offered little protection from the relentless wind, but she held it tightly around her shoulders, wrapping it like a shield. In her arms she carried a small child, whose head rested against her chest, shivering and weak from hunger and exhaustion. Every few steps, the mother would glance down at the child, her heart aching at the sight of the pale, chapped cheeks and tired eyes. They had been running for days, fleeing from a danger that had shattered their lives. Soldiers had come to their village, leaving a trail of smoke and sorrow behind. Families torn apart, homes burned, and the sounds of screaming still echoed in the mother's mind. She could not forget the day she had lost her husband, taken by a group of men whose faces were hidden beneath grim expressions. She had grabbed her child and run into the forest, guided by instinct, fear, and a desperate will to survive. The child stirred in her arms, whimpering softly. She held the little one closer and whispered words meant to soothe both of them. "It's all right, my little one. We will be safe soon. Just keep moving, and we'll find a place where no one can hurt us." Her voice, though gentle, carried the strength of someone who had endured more than most could imagine. She forced herself not to cry, for crying would not make them safe. It would only slow them down. The snow crunched beneath her boots as she pushed forward. Her body ached from the cold, from hunger, and from carrying the child, yet she refused to stop. Every so often she would look back, scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. The forest behind them offered some cover, but it also hid dangers of its own. Wild animals, slippery ice, and treacherous cliffs. She had learned to be cautious, to trust her instincts, and to keep moving no matter how tired she became. As the day wore on, the sun struggled to break through the thick clouds, casting a pale gray light over the landscape. The mother's thoughts drifted to memories of her home, the warm fire in the hearth, the smell of freshly baked bread, and the laughter of her husband and neighbors. Those memories now felt like a lifetime ago, distant and almost unreal. Yet they fueled her determination to survive. She owed it to her child to keep going, to find safety, to live. By late afternoon, her strength was waning. The snow had become deeper, and the wind sharper. She stumbled over a hidden root and nearly fell, but managed to catch herself, gripping the child tightly. Her hands were numb, her fingers stiff and cracked from the cold. She pressed her lips together, fighting back tears, knowing that giving in to despair would only put them in greater danger. Finally, as the light began to fade, she spotted a small copse of trees that offered some shelter from the wind. The branches were thin and bare, but they formed a small barrier that blocked the worst of the gusts. She moved quickly toward it, setting the child down carefully and wrapping them both in the cloak as best she could. The mother sank to the ground, her back against a tree trunk, and let herself breathe for the first time in hours. Her body shivered uncontrollably, but she was alive, and so was her child. That was enough. For now, as she rested, she listened to the sounds of the forest around her. The wind whistled through the branches, carrying the faint cries of distant animals. Each sound reminded her that they were still very much alone in this wild place. The thought of spending the night here, exposed and vulnerable, made her heart race with fear. She knew she needed a safer place, somewhere to rest and regain her strength, somewhere that offered warmth, protection, and hope. Night fell quickly, covering the world in a blanket of darkness that seemed almost solid. The stars, usually bright and comforting, were hidden behind heavy clouds, leaving only the dim glow of the moon to light her way. The mother knew that moving at night was dangerous, but staying still was no safer. She held her child tightly and rose to her feet, scanning the horizon for any sign of help or shelter. It was then, through the dim light, that she saw it. A faint glow in the distance. Her heart leapt. It was not much, just a flicker, but it was enough to give her hope. She did not know what awaited her, whether friend or stranger, but the glow promised warmth and life in a world that had offered little of either. Carefully, she began to move toward it, her steps slow but determined. The child stirred again, and she whispered reassuring words, feeling a small spark of hope ignite in her chest. As she approached, she realized that the glow came from a small cabin, smoke curling from its chimney into the cold night air. The sight filled her with a mixture of relief and fear, opening his eyes. Who lived there? Would they welcome her, or would she face another danger? She clutched her child closer and stepped onto the snow-covered path leading to the door, her heart pounding in her chest. The cabin door opened, and an older man stepped out, his face lined with years of experience and kindness. He looked at the mother and child with surprise, but there was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity and a gentle concern. The mother's voice trembled as she spoke. "Please, we need help. We have nowhere else to go." The man studied them for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Come in," he said softly. "There's room in my home, and in my heart, for you this Christmas." With those words, a weight lifted from the mother's shoulders. She stepped inside the cabin, holding her child close, feeling the warmth of the fire wash over her cold, tired body. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of safety. She did not know what the future held, but in that moment, there was hope. And sometimes, hope was the most powerful thing of all. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled, casting a golden glow over the wooden walls. The man offered them blankets and warm food, and the mother allowed herself to relax just enough to feel the comfort of simple kindness. The child nestled against her, finally quiet and safe. She looked around at the small cabin, at the stranger who had opened his door to them, and felt a warmth that went beyond the fire, a warmth of trust, of shared humanity, of hope. The night stretched on, quiet and peaceful for the first time since their flight began. Outside, the wind still howled and the snow continued to fall, but inside the cabin there was light, warmth, and the gentle promise of safety. The mother held her child close and whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. They had survived the day, and now, perhaps, they could survive tomorrow. And as the fire flickered and the wind roared outside, the mother allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could bring more than survival. Maybe it could bring a new beginning, a chance for healing, and a reminder that even in the darkest winters, there is room in the world for kindness, compassion, and love. The mother had never seen such a warm, welcoming cabin in her life. Inside, the fire blazed in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls. The man who had welcomed them, tall, with silver streaks in his hair and kind, steady eyes, moved quietly around the small space, setting down bowls and fetching blankets. The mother held her child close, watching him carefully, still unsure if this was real or if danger might come at any moment. The man noticed her hesitation but said nothing that would scare her. Instead, he offered them simple food, a small loaf of bread and some warm stew. The mother thanked him softly, the words trembling on her lips, but the man simply nodded with a gentle smile. "Eat," he said. "You need your strength. You've been through much today." The child, still shivering, reached for the food with small, trembling hands. The mother guided him gently, letting him eat first. She watched him carefully, seeing the fear in his eyes slowly melt into the trust of someone who felt safe, even for a moment. The sound of the child's small chewing was the first peaceful noise she had heard in days, and her heart swelled with relief. After they had eaten, the man offered them blankets. The mother accepted, wrapping the child tightly in one, while she draped another around her shoulders. They sat by the fire, warmth radiating over their chilled bodies, and for the first time since fleeing her village, the mother felt a small sense of calm. The fire crackled, filling the cabin with a soft, comforting sound. Outside, the wind continued to howl and snow fell heavily. But inside, there was safety. The mother finally spoke, her voice quiet but steady. We have no home left, no one to turn to. I am afraid we are still not safe." The man nodded slowly, understanding the depth of her fear. "You are safe here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we will see what can be done. For now, rest. You've earned it." She nodded, grateful for the kindness, but her mind was restless. Memories of her village haunted her. The screams, the smoke rising from the homes, the chaos. She had left everything behind. Her husband, her friends, her home. The thought of losing everything again made her chest ache. She brushed a hand over the child's hair, willing herself to stay calm, to stay strong. The little one needed her to be strong. As night fell deeper, the cabin felt like a small island in a vast, frozen world. The man brought them a small bed of straw and blankets in a corner near the fire. "You will sleep here," he said. "I will be nearby if you need anything." The mother carefully laid the child down, brushing the hair from his forehead. The child's eyelids drooped, and soon he was asleep, breathing softly in the warmth of the cabin. The mother sat beside him, her own body exhausted. She wrapped her cloak tighter and let herself lean back against the wall, closing her eyes for a moment. Sleep tried to pull her under, but worry held her back. She thought about the journey ahead, wondering how she could survive the coming days, how she could protect her child in a world that seemed so full of danger. The man moved quietly around the cabin, preparing for the night. He fetched more wood for the fire and made sure the cabin was secure. Though he had lived alone for many years, he had never felt this sense of purpose, the kind that comes from helping those in desperate need. Watching the mother and child, he felt a quiet hope, as though this encounter was meant to happen, as though fate had brought them together for a reason. Hours passed, and the wind outside grew fiercer, rattling the cabin walls. The mother kept a careful watch, but no one approached. Slowly, she began to allow herself a small measure of trust. Perhaps this man truly meant to help them. Perhaps, for the first time in a long while, they could feel safe. In the morning, sunlight filtered weakly through the cabin windows, painting the snow outside in pale gold. The mother awoke to the smell of bread baking and the warmth of the fire. Her child stirred, blinking sleepily. The man was already up, tending the fire and preparing a simple breakfast. He smiled warmly at her as she entered the main room. "You slept well?" he asked. She nodded, feeling a little embarrassed that she had allowed herself to rest, but the man's smile reassured her. After breakfast, they spoke quietly. The mother shared fragments of her story, careful not to reveal too much too quickly. She spoke of her village, the raid, and a long, frightening journey through the snow. Her voice trembled at times, but the man listened without interruption, offering small words of encouragement and understanding. He did not ask questions that would make her feel judged or exposed. He simply listened, which was sometimes more comforting than any action. The child played quietly near the fire, stacking small pieces of wood and watching the flames. Occasionally, he glanced at his mother with wide eyes, sensing the change in their surroundings. For the first time in days, he laughed, a small, tentative laugh, but it was enough to make the mother's heart soar. She smiled back at him, tears brimming in her eyes. This simple moment of happiness reminded her that there could still be joy, even in a harsh and dangerous world. The man suggested that they stay for a few days until the weather improved and they regained their strength. The mother agreed, knowing they could not continue the journey in the snowstorm. Each day they stayed, she observed the man's kindness, his gentle way of speaking, and the care he showed for his home and the small comforts he provided. Slowly, the walls around her heart began to soften. She began to see that not everyone in the world was cruel or dangerous. Some people truly cared, even for strangers. During the next few days, the mother and the man developed a quiet routine. She helped with small chores, fetching water and tending to the fire, while he taught her how to preserve food, make simple repairs, and use the surrounding woods safely. Though her mind was always alert, ready to flee at a moment's notice, she began to feel a sense of belonging. However small, her child laughed more each day, playing with sticks and small animals that wandered near the cabin, unaware of the dangers that lurked beyond the trees. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, the mother sat with the man by the fire. She spoke of her husband, of her village, and of the life she had lost. Her voice wavered, and tears fell silently onto her lap. The man reached out, placing a gentle hand over hers. "It is not too late to find peace," he said quietly. "You have survived. You have protected your child. That is strength. That is courage. You are not alone anymore." His words struck her deeply. For so long she had believed that the world had nothing to offer but pain and loss. Yet here, in this small cabin, she felt the possibility of hope. She realized that her journey had brought her to a place where compassion existed, where people were willing to help, and where she could begin to heal. The child, sensing the change in his mother's mood, climbed onto her lap and hugged her tightly. "I like it here, Mama," he whispered. His innocent words made her heart swell with gratitude. She hugged him back, promising silently that she would do everything she could to keep him safe and happy. As Christmas approached, the cabin became a small haven of warmth and light. Though they were far from the world they had known, the mother and child began to experience something they had not felt in months: a sense of family, connection, and belonging. The man treated them as part of his life, and in return, they began to trust him. Together, they created a fragile but precious bubble of safety and hope amidst a world that often seemed cruel and unforgiving. And though the snow continued to fall outside and the wind howled through the trees, inside the cabin there was laughter, warmth, and the quiet understanding that even in the harshest winters, kindness and human connection could bring light to the darkest days. The mother felt a small smile tug at her lips as she watched her child play, and she knew, deep in her heart, that they had taken the first steps toward a new life, one where love and hope could grow, even in the face of loss. Days passed in a gentle rhythm inside the small cabin, a rhythm that was almost magical in its simplicity. The mother and child began to feel a sense of normalcy they had not known for months. Each morning, the sun barely glimmered through the snow-laden trees, but the warmth of the fire and the kindness of the man made them forget, for a while, the harsh world outside. The mother began helping the man with small tasks around the cabin. She swept the floor, gathered firewood, and helped prepare simple meals. The man showed her how to preserve food in jars, how to check the safety of the surrounding forest, and how to build small snow barriers to protect against the wind. Though these lessons were practical, they also taught her a sense of security she had not felt since leaving her village. Each task was small, yet each task was a step toward rebuilding her confidence and trust in the world. The child, curious and energetic, ran around the cabin collecting sticks for the fire or playing with the snow outside. Sometimes he would laugh, a bright, clear sound that filled the cabin like sunlight. The mother often paused to watch him, feeling a mixture of relief and hope. Seeing her child happy again was a comfort beyond words. She had survived so much, and yet here, in this cabin, with this man who had welcomed them, she felt the possibility of joy returning. One morning, the man suggested that they take a short walk into the nearby woods. He wanted to teach them how to move safely through the snow and recognize the signs of animals, shelter spots, and other features of the forest that could help them survive if needed. The mother agreed cautiously, carrying her child on her back with a sturdy strap she had learned to tie under the man's guidance. The forest was beautiful, in a stark, quiet way. Snow lay thick on the branches, and the occasional sunlight reflected off the white surfaces, making the world glimmer. Birds chirped softly in the distance, and a small stream, partially frozen, meandered through the trees. Despite the beauty, the mother remained vigilant, scanning the shadows and listening for any sign of danger. Her past experiences had taught her that appearances could be deceiving, and that, even in moments of peace, one must remain aware. As they walked, the man shared stories of his own life. He spoke of the seasons, of times he had faced challenges, and of the simple joys that could be found in helping others. The mother listened carefully, occasionally sharing small details of her life, without revealing everything too soon. She spoke of her child's first steps, the songs she sang as a lullaby, and the way she and her husband had planted small gardens in the spring. Though the memories were bittersweet, speaking of them allowed her to feel connected to her past, rather than consumed by it. The child, perched securely on her back, watched the world with wide eyes. He pointed at snow-covered branches, at small tracks left by animals, and at the sparkling stream. His excitement was contagious, and the mother found herself smiling more often, letting a small lightness enter her chest. For a moment, the weight of loss and fear lifted, replaced by curiosity, laughter, and the thrill of discovery. As the walk continued, the man guided them to a small clearing. Here he showed them how to identify safe plants for food, how to make small snow shelters, and how to mark their path in case they needed to return quickly. The mother learned quickly, her instincts honed by necessity over the past months. She felt a new kind of confidence emerging, one that came not from safety, but from knowledge and preparation. By late afternoon, they returned to the cabin. The snow had begun falling more heavily and the wind had picked up, but inside, the cabin felt more like a home than ever. They sat together by the fire, drinking warm broth and eating bread. The child leaned against his mother, exhausted but happy. She looked at the man, and for the first time she allowed herself to feel gratitude without fear. She trusted him, not blindly, but with the cautious hope that he truly meant what he had said, that there was room in his heart for them. Yet even as they settled into this small bubble of peace, the mother could not ignore the unease that lingered in the back of her mind. She had fled danger before, and she knew that safety could be fragile. The soldiers who had raided her village were still out there somewhere, and the forest, though beautiful, could conceal threats. She spoke quietly to the man one evening as the child slept, her voice low but steady. "I am grateful," she said, "truly, but I cannot forget what is out there. I cannot forget that danger may find us again." The man nodded, understanding the depth of her fear. "You are right to be cautious," he said. "The world can be harsh, but we cannot let fear stop us from living. Here we take what safety we can find, and we prepare. Together we are stronger than alone." The mother felt the truth in his words. It was not just the fire, the food, or the shelter that made this place a haven. It was the connection, the understanding, and the shared care. She realized that this man had become more than a stranger. He was a guardian of sorts, someone whose presence offered protection, wisdom, and hope. The next few days passed with a mixture of learning, reflection, and small joys. The mother began to teach the child simple songs she had sung to him when he was younger. He laughed and attempted to sing along, often mixing up the words, but the sound of his voice filled the cabin with warmth. The man would smile from his corner, quietly appreciating the way these two had become part of his life, part of his world. But life, even in its quietest moments, has a way of reminding people that danger is never far away. One afternoon, while gathering firewood near the edge of the forest, the man noticed faint tracks in the snow. At first they seemed harmless, just animals, but upon closer inspection he realized that the patterns were too large, too deliberate, to belong to anything other than humans. His heart tightened. He called the mother and child to him, keeping his voice calm. "We may not be completely alone," he said carefully. "We need to be prepared just in case." The mother's heart raced, but she nodded. She had expected as much. Danger had followed her before, and she knew it could happen again. Together they returned to the cabin, carrying firewood and ensuring the door was secured. They double-checked the small barriers around the cabin, moving furniture to block easy entry, and keeping weapons, tools, and provisions within reach. Though the child watched curiously, the mother shielded him from worry, whispering reassurance while silently steeling herself for what might come. As night fell, the wind picked up again, rattling the walls and making the fire flicker. The mother sat close to the child, her mind alert, even as she allowed herself a few moments of rest. The man sat nearby, quietly sharpening tools and keeping watch. The cabin, once a simple place of warmth and safety, now felt like a small fortress against the unknown. Every creak of the floor, every howl of the wind reminded them that vigilance was necessary. Even in these tense moments, small gestures of kindness persisted. The man offered hot tea to the mother, and she smiled, grateful for the comfort. The child, sensing the subtle tension, snuggled closer to her, seeking the warmth of her embrace. The mother stroked his hair, whispering softly, "We are safe here, my little one. For tonight, we are safe." And in that small cabin, amidst the cold, the snow, and the uncertainty, a quiet bond deepened. The mother realized that survival was not just about avoiding danger. It was about connection, trust, and hope. The man's kindness had created a fragile but enduring sanctuary. Here, they were not just hiding from the world. They were learning to live again, even if only for a moment. The mother knew that challenges would come, that the journey was far from over, and that dangers still lurked beyond the trees. But for now, she felt something she had not felt in a long time, the courage to hope. In the warmth of the cabin, in the laughter of her child, and in the quiet understanding of the man who had welcomed them, she found a small light that could guide them through the darkness. And as the snow fell silently outside, the three of them sat together by the fire, sharing a simple meal and quiet conversation, understanding that in this winter wilderness, kindness and trust could become a shield stronger than any weapon. The mother allowed herself to feel gratitude, hope, and even a small joy, knowing that despite the challenges that lay ahead, they were not alone. The snow outside the cabin had grown heavier, covering the ground in a thick, soft blanket. The wind whistled through the trees, bending their branches and scattering powdery snow across the forest floor. Inside the cabin, warmth and light flickered from the fire, but a quiet unease had settled over the small group. The man had noticed the tracks near the forest edge days ago, and though they had hoped it was nothing, the signs suggested that someone, humans, not animals, might be nearby. The mother sensed it first, a subtle shift in the air, the way the shadows in the cabin seemed longer, darker. She glanced toward the door, where the wind rattled the wooden frame. Her child played quietly near the fire, unaware of the growing tension. The mother felt her chest tighten. For months she had lived in fear, running from one danger to another, and now, it seemed, the world might have caught up with them again. The man spoke first, his voice calm but serious. "We need to be ready. There may be visitors soon, not the kind we want to see." He paused, looking toward the mother with concern. "It may not be safe to stay outside, even for a moment. We will have to protect ourselves and the child if necessary." The mother nodded, her mind already racing through plans. She had survived ambushes, harsh weather, and endless days of running. She would do anything to keep her child safe. They began securing the cabin more thoroughly, reinforcing the door with heavy furniture and making sure the small windows were covered enough to prevent anyone from peering inside. Every tool, stick, and piece of firewood became part of their defense. As evening fell, the snowstorm intensified, turning the forest outside into a blur of white. The cabin, warm and safe on the inside, felt like a small island in a sea of uncertainty. The child, sensing the tension but not fully understanding it, huddled near his mother. She wrapped her arms around him, whispering soft reassurances. "Everything is okay," she murmured. "We are safe here. You are with me, and that is all that matters." Hours passed slowly, the wind howling like a living thing. The man kept watch by the window, his eyes scanning the forest beyond, alert for any sign of movement. Occasionally, he would catch glimpses of shadows between the trees, and his hand instinctively tightened around a small, sharpened tool he kept for protection. The mother watched him, feeling both gratitude and concern. She knew he was capable and brave, but the presence of danger always made her heart race. Suddenly, a faint sound broke the monotony of the storm. A crunch, then another, like footsteps moving cautiously through the snow. The man's eyes narrowed and he motioned for the mother to stay low with the child. They crouched near the fire, shadows flickering across their faces as the man moved quietly to the door. The sound grew closer, deliberate and measured. Someone, or more than one person, was approaching the cabin. The mother's mind raced. She thought of their options, each one risky. Flee into the storm, stay and hide, or prepare to confront whoever was coming. She could feel the child's small body pressed against hers, trembling slightly. She whispered calming words, steadying her own breathing as much as his. The child's trust in her was complete, and she could not let fear compromise it. The man returned to their side, his expression tense but controlled. "They are close," he said. "We must stay quiet and be ready. If they find us, we may have to defend ourselves. But I will protect you both." The mother nodded, her resolve hardening. Together they had survived so much already. They could face this too. Outside, the wind carried muffled voices. Faint but distinct, the snowstorm acted as both a cover and a challenge. The strangers, soldiers, bounty hunters, or unknown men, were moving carefully, likely searching for signs of life. The cabin was small, but it offered a strategic advantage. Sturdy walls, a single entry point, and the knowledge that anyone inside was prepared. The mother and the man moved quietly, arranging a few small barriers near the door and windows. Though the mother had no formal training in defense, her instincts and experiences over the past months made her effective. She positioned herself near the child, ensuring that he could not be harmed by accident while remaining close enough to act if necessary. Minutes passed like hours. The voices outside grew louder, closer, but they did not yet see the cabin. The man whispered instructions in a calm, steady voice. "If they enter, stay behind me. Do not speak unless I tell you. We will get through this together." The mother nodded, gripping the child tightly and preparing herself for whatever might happen. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the cabin, and the door rattled from a forceful push. The mother's heart leapt, but she did not cry out. The man moved quickly, placing himself between the door and the others. The shadow retreated slightly, as if realizing the cabin was occupied and defended. The wind howled louder, masking any additional movements. Inside, the mother whispered to the child, "Stay quiet, my little one. We are safe here with me." Remember, courage is sometimes being still and calm, even when you are scared. The child nodded faintly, trusting her completely. His small hands clutched her cloak, his eyes wide but calm. The hours passed, tense and silent. The snowstorm acted as a shield, keeping the outsiders from pressing closer. Occasionally, the man would peek through small gaps, tracking movement and listening. Each time, the mother felt a wave of relief, followed immediately by renewed anxiety. The waiting was exhausting, testing their resolve and patience. As midnight approached, the storm began to ease slightly. The wind still blew, but the snowfall was lighter. The man stepped outside carefully, returning a few moments later with a report. "They are moving away," he said softly. "It seems the storm and the forest have forced them to turn back. For now, we are safe." The mother exhaled a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She hugged her child close, feeling the warmth and steady heartbeat that reminded her of why she had endured so much. The danger had passed for now, but the experience left a lasting impression. She understood more deeply than ever the fragility of safety and the value of trust and preparation. The night stretched on quietly, and the mother and child finally slept, wrapped in blankets near the fire. The man kept a watchful eye, knowing that the forest held both protection and uncertainty. Though they had faced danger, they had also survived, and their bond had strengthened through shared courage and vigilance. The following morning, the mother and the man spoke quietly about what had happened. "We must always be careful," he said. "The world outside is unpredictable, but we are stronger together. Knowledge, preparation, and trust will guide us." She nodded, feeling a quiet determination. She realized that danger was a part of life, but fear would not control them. The child, sensing the calm after the storm, played near the fire once again. The mother watched, smiling softly, feeling a mixture of relief, gratitude, and hope. Even though the outside world was harsh, they had discovered something inside the cabin that no storm or danger could touch: human kindness, trust, and the courage to survive together. As the snow melted slightly under the morning sun, The cabin seemed almost magical. The mother knew that more challenges would come, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready. She had her child, a safe place, and a man who had shown her that compassion could exist even in the coldest winters. She allowed herself to hope, not blindly, but wisely, that they could face whatever lay ahead, together. And so, despite the night of fear and tension, a sense of resilience took root. The mother knew that life could be dangerous, but she also knew that courage, love, and the bonds formed through kindness could offer protection stronger than walls or weapons. They had survived another test, and though the journey was far from over, the light of hope burned brighter than ever in their hearts. The first light of dawn broke gently over the snow-covered forest. Sunlight spilled across the frozen ground, turning the world into a sparkling sea of white. Inside the cabin, warmth from the fire spread slowly through the small space, bringing life back into the tired bodies of the mother and her child. After the storm and the tense night of fear, a new day offered them a fresh beginning, a chance to breathe, to hope, and to rebuild. The mother stirred slowly, careful not to wake the child immediately. She watched the glow of the morning light dancing on the cabin walls, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something she had almost forgotten: peace. The man who had taken them in moved quietly, tending the fire and preparing a simple breakfast of bread and warm porridge. His movements were calm and steady, a silent reassurance that the dangers of the past night were behind them, at least for now. The child awoke with a soft yawn, rubbing his eyes as he looked around the cabin. When he saw the fire and the man smiling at him, he climbed into his mother's arms, still sleepy but comforted. The mother held him close, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his small heart, and the miracle of being alive together. "Good morning, my little one," she whispered. "Today is a new day." After breakfast, the three of them stepped outside for the first time in days. The snow sparkled under the sun, a vast, silent world stretching beyond the trees. The mother breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the crisp, cold air. She realized how much she had missed the simple joys of life, the feeling of snow beneath her boots, the soft crunch of ice underfoot, and the quiet peace of the forest after a storm. The man suggested they take a short walk, not for survival or lessons this time, but simply to enjoy the day. The mother agreed, carrying her child securely while the man led the way. They moved slowly, noticing small details of the forest, the way sunlight glinted off icicles, the tracks of animals frozen in the snow, and the soft whisper of the wind through the trees. For the first time in months, the mother allowed herself to feel that the world could be gentle, even after all the hardship. As they walked, the mother spoke quietly of her memories, of her village before the raid, of the songs she sang to her child, and of her husband's laughter. Though the past still carried pain, sharing it allowed her to release some of the grief that had weighed on her heart. The man listened patiently, offering small words of understanding and compassion. The child, perched safely on her back, listened too, absorbing the calm and warmth around him. By midday, they returned to the cabin and began preparing a small Christmas celebration. Though it was far from grand, it was filled with meaning. The man gathered some evergreen branches, placing them near the fire for decoration. The mother and child helped by arranging small pine cones and tying simple ribbons made from cloth scraps. Together, they transformed the cabin into a place of light, warmth, and hope, a home in the truest sense of the word. The mother carefully prepared a meal with the supplies they had: warm bread, a small pot of stew, and a few preserved fruits. It was simple, but to them, it was a feast. The child laughed as he helped stir the stew, dropping a few pieces accidentally, but the mother only smiled and gently corrected him. The man watched from the fire, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction and gratitude. This moment, simple as it was, represented survival, healing, and the quiet power of human kindness. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, they gathered around the fire to share stories. The man told tales of his own life, of winters past, and of the lessons he had learned living in the wilderness. The mother shared small stories of her child's early years, of his first steps and first words, and of the love that had carried her through the hardest days. The child, listening intently, smiled and laughed, filling the cabin with sounds that felt like a song of life returning. As the evening approached, a sense of calm settled over them. The snow outside was quiet, the wind gentle, and the forest seemed almost peaceful. The mother realized that in these moments they had created something precious, a sanctuary of trust, warmth, and shared humanity. The dangers they had faced had not disappeared entirely, but the bond they shared made them stronger, braver, and more resilient. The man, noticing the mother's reflective mood, spoke softly. "You have done something remarkable," he said. "You have survived, protected your child, and allowed hope to grow even in the darkest times. That is courage beyond measure." The mother smiled, feeling the weight of his words. She realized that courage was not just about running or fighting. It was about enduring, caring, and finding strength in love and trust. As night fell, they lit a small candle by the fire, its warm glow reflecting in their eyes. The mother held her child, rocking him gently, while the man sat nearby, keeping watch and quietly enjoying the simple comfort of companionship. In that moment, the cabin was more than a shelter. It was a home, a place where hope and healing could take root. The mother thought of the journey that had brought them here. From the chaos and terror of her village to this small cabin in the snowy forest. Every step, every decision had been a struggle, yet it had also led her to kindness, trust, and new beginnings. She whispered softly to her child, "We are safe now. You are loved, and we will face the future together." The child smiled, resting his head against her shoulder, feeling the warmth and security that had been missing for so long. That Christmas night they shared a simple meal by the fire, laughing quietly and enjoying each other's company. They talked about dreams for the future, small things like planting a garden in the spring, exploring the forest safely, and sharing many more meals together. For the mother, the most important dream was seeing her child grow up with safety, love, and hope, free from the fear that had shadowed their lives for so long. The man looked at them both and felt a quiet pride. Though he had lived alone for many years, he realized that the arrival of the mother and child had brought a new purpose to his life. He had opened his home and heart without expectation, and in return, he had discovered a connection deeper than he had imagined. The cabin was no longer just a shelter. It was a place where 3 lives intertwined, creating a family forged not by blood, but by trust, courage, and love. Outside, the snow continued to fall softly, coating the forest in a serene white blanket. The night was quiet, and the world seemed peaceful. Inside, the fire crackled, casting golden light over the 3 figures huddled together. The mother felt a deep sense of gratitude for the man's kindness, for her child's laughter, and for the small moments of peace they had carved out in a world that had often been cruel. She realized that this Christmas, though far from what she had once imagined, was perhaps the most meaningful she had ever experienced. It was not about gifts or celebrations, but about life, survival, and the bonds that give it purpose. She felt a profound sense of hope, knowing that together they could face whatever challenges the future might bring. The child, tired from the excitement of the day, fell asleep in his mother's arms. She held him close, listening to his steady breathing, feeling the warmth of his body and the certainty of his safety. The man watched them, a small smile on his face, quietly thankful for the unexpected joy that had entered his life. As the night deepened, the mother whispered softly, "Thank you for everything, for warmth, for safety, and for showing me that kindness still exists in this world." The man simply nodded, understanding that words were not always needed. Their shared experiences, the trials they had endured, and the trust they had built were more powerful than any expression of gratitude. And so, in that small cabin in the snowy forest, they found something that had eluded them for so long: a home in each other's hearts. The storms outside would eventually pass, the world would continue to hold challenges, but within the warmth of firelight, laughter, and love, they had discovered a sanctuary that nothing could destroy. That Christmas, the mother, her child, and the man shared not just a meal or a night of warmth, but a deeper truth, that even in the harshest winters of life, human kindness, courage, and love can create a light that guides the way. And in that light, there was hope, healing, and the promise of many more days filled with laughter, safety, and togetherness. They fell asleep that night knowing that no matter what lay ahead, they had found something lasting. A family born not of circumstance, but of compassion, bravery, and the shared journey of hearts willing to care for one another. And as the snow fell softly on the forest outside, the cabin glowed with warmth, hope, and the quiet joy of a Christmas filled with life, love, and new beginnings.